So we come back to Blaire White. We're still in the same video. The reason I looked at this and thought it was interesting, it says here, the dangerous rise of right-wing gay men. I wanted to talk a bit about, like, leaving the left, which is something that I don't claim to have done because I still think I'm, like, at least a little bit, like, left-wing, like, center-left, whatever. But it's something that's happening more and more, and we have to understand why that is, and we have to understand why the left wing of, like, trans advocacy is pushing a lot of people away at, you know, a rate that I think is only going to continue. And that certainly has happened to me. It's happened over years and years and years. And it gets to the point where even, like, fucking liberal trans people, like, can't get on board with this, like, cult shit anymore. We're all socialists and communists, and we're all anarchists, and we're all polyamorous, and we all have extremely weird, like, ideas about all sorts of shit. Half of us are fucking child groomers, you know what I mean? Like, none of us, well, I say none of us, an increasing number of, like, LGBT people and allies don't want anything to do with that shit anymore. And I'm gonna just see what the end of this Blaire White thing is, because as much as I shout on Blaire White for her Destiny opinions, and I stand by everything I've said, by the way, that doesn't mean I think that she's completely stupid in every other aspect. She tends to have pretty good takes on this whole thing because it's something that happened to her a long time ago. And you know, what happens is when you speak out about the stuff that you perceive as wrong, you don't really get listened to, you just get shat on, and the movement continues to get more and more insular and include less and less people, ironically. But yeah, let's see.
Well, this tweet, if you're a gay Republican, you are an absolute fucking weirdo and loser.
Yeah, this is getting on to what I wanted to talk about. Like, again, just don't say shit like this. You don't understand these people. You don't understand how they got to the positions they are, and you never will because you're shitting on them instead of trying to understand them. So, hey.
It's just like, for me at least, right? Because some of us have actually broken through that conditioning. For me, it's...
Well, you've broken through that conditioning and you're just in a different cult, let's be clear. But, like I said, she's normally right about this kind of stuff.
Way more offensive to believe that you own me than it is for anyone on the right who maybe dislikes me for what I am. Like, that is so much more offensive. And for me, it is reason enough to vote against them just right there. Just on principle. Like, bitch, you think you own me?
That, I think, is insane, to be clear. Like, I never want to change my politics because I don't like the other people that agree with me. There's, like, tons of liberals out there who I probably think are, like, complete pieces of shit. I'm not going to change to become a conservative because I don't like some liberals. You know what I mean? That's just not how I'm cut out. That's not how I'm built. That's just being controlled by people, but in the opposite way. And I don't do controlled by other people. It doesn't matter whether it's rightoids, whether it's leftoids. It doesn't matter whether they're directly or indirectly controlling my shit. Like, ultimately, that's how I feel about it.
He dislikes me for what I am. Like, that is so much more offensive.
But what I do agree with is her saying, like, you know, you don't own me. I feel what she's saying there because it's like, you know, so many people seem to think that if you're trans, you owe leftism. Like, you owe everyone else fucking leftism, and you don't. Like, you should be able to think what you want. And trans people with different opinions should be able to come together and, like, you know, focus on, like, the common ground that we have, which is more than we think, because we're all human beings, but we don't want to do that.
And for me, it is reason enough to vote against them just right there. Just on principle. Like, bitch, you think you own me?
Yeah, so you're being controlled by the other side. I mean, it's not an especially smart take, but I do feel what she said just before that.
You think I owe you a vote because what? Because you've taken ownership of, like, we can even just make it trans. Like,
you don't even, well, you don't owe them a vote. You also don't owe them the opposite vote out of spite. I don't know. But I don't know. It's difficult to gauge, like, it's difficult to gauge how these people overlook, like, some of the more bizarre, like, Trump shit. So I don't know.
Y'all just go through and pick these little vulnerable groups of people, claim to be their savior, utilize the fuck out of them, raise money off of them, try to get votes off of them, and then have the nerve to make racist statements like, you're going to look real weird if you're black. But then again, you know, this is just par for the course. You have...
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, like, black conservatives. There's a fair amount of them out there, and, like, to wallpaper over them and just write them off as race traitors or whatever the fuck is ridiculous. Like fueling the divisiveness, like fueling the division in countries like ours and, like, in the US is never going to go anywhere but badly, in my opinion.
Joe Biden, who said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Like, that's crazy, but is it worse than trying to subvert the very fabric of democracy? I don't know. But you can't vote for Biden anymore anyway, so who gives a shit, you know?
It's also just representative of the fact that most, maybe not most, but just like such a sizable portion of the population has such a low IQ, such a lack of understanding of politics, such an inability to ever discuss politics, that the powers that be know that. So they're not going to lay out policy for you. They're going to tell you, you're black, vote this way. And y'all are so stuck on stupid, that doesn't filter as like offensive or like racist to you. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm the crazy one. I'm like, did this bitch just tell me who to vote for because I'm trans?
Oh yeah, I get used to it. I mean, she knows better than fucking I do, to be honest. She's had this problem a lot longer than I have. I used to be like soy as fuck as well, but like she was soy as fuck when she was like 18 and she's now 30. I've been not soy for about 3 years, so hey.
Does this bitch think they have ownership of my mind, body, and soul, and decisions and voting choices, so much so that they can just invoke the fact that I'm trans? And they love to go with, but what about how he's going to take away all your rights if you're trans, if you're voting for Trump? Project 2025.
Bitch, we have much bigger issues to deal with if like Trump wins, or even if he loses, to be honest, like just Trump being any part of this shit whatsoever, than whether we're going to have trans rights, you know? Like, Jesus Christ. This is like even worse than the bullshit that trans people are insisting on putting on fucking West Streeting at the moment.
Google Project 2025. Project 2025 is Y2K for retards. It is Coney 2012 for shitlibs. It really
I remember Coney 2012. Fuck me.
is. It doesn't matter how many times Trump says, what is that? That's not even like my thing. Doesn't matter how many times he says,
it was the Heritage Foundation or something. Listen, it's really easy to attack Trump. Why would you go for stuff that isn't even really his? Why wouldn't you just talk about the shit that he has done? Like, talk about the fucking insurrection and stuff like that, which is indefensible in my opinion. Like, why the fuck is he running? Why the fuck has he been, like, legitimized to the point where people like this are, like, happy to support him? I don't know why anyone's supporting him. Who gives a fuck about trans people? Like, why is anyone supporting him? I don't understand it, but hey, you have your God-given right to have your opinion and vote for who you want. It's not like we're having a conversation here. I'm just reacting to a video, so, you know, it is what it is. I try not to, like, judge people too much. I do think you're crazy if you're voting for Trump, but hey, you probably think I'm crazy because I voted Labour, so, like, for me, I'm happy to put a pin in that, and well, you know, we both think we're crazy on those points. Like, why don't we just talk about something else then?
Actually, that's like not written by me. Those are not things that I'm proposing, and I actually think it's extreme and I disavow it. Doesn't matter how many times they lie to you.
Didn't he upset some of his like supporter base by disavowing it? I'm sure. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
So easily, so frequently, and with such an intensity. And it's clear that propaganda is just so successful in this country. All right, you guys.
It's clear on both sides that it's fucking successful because you're weird as fuck. Insurrectionist president has been completely legitimized, completely whitewashed, and people are happy to like follow him wherever the fuck this shit is going. So hey, well done. So moving on from that, I have Anna Kasparian, and I've got 2 videos. So this was, I think, from about a year ago. She was unhappy with gender neutral language. I think we're going to get into the specifics. I can't remember exactly what she said she was against. It was like birthing persons or something. Now, my take on gender neutral language in general is that no one wants it. There's no point in pushing it. Like, even if you're not pushing it and you're defending it, like, just don't. You know, there's a reason why women want to be called women and not birthing people and not fucking chest feeders and all that weird shit. Like, no one wants this shit. Just cut it the fuck out. And we're seeing the resistance from other left-leaning people now because we're taking this shit so far and we're not taking the hint that people don't want this.
Birthing people, really? Come on. For me, it's not even like, oh, I don't want to be inclusive and I don't want to think of, transgender people. It's the phrasing, like, it just makes you sound like a weird object that, like, you're a vessel and nothing more. Like birthing people just sounds weird.
Isn't it still misgendering? Like, if you're a woman and someone calls you a they, you might feel a bit misgendered by that. You might feel like, does this person think I'm like a queer or something? Like, that's not me. I don't know. Yeah, this in particular, like, if someone doesn't want to be called something, like, this usually for woke people is like, you know, don't call like trans people things they don't want to be called. Don't call a trans woman a he and stuff. But as soon as this woman saying, I don't like birthing person, like maybe it's inclusive, but it feels actually exclusive to me because I am a woman, you know? And suddenly that's bad. I don't know. Fuck me. The woke shit makes no sense. This is why people like move away from the left stuff, and it's going to keep happening. Yeah, so people who are usually like saying, oh, you shouldn't call people things that they don't want to be called. Let's say I don't want to be called a he. You shouldn't call that person a he. That's not nice. You shouldn't call that person that thing. Oh, if a person is giving birth but they don't like being called a woman, you shouldn't call them a woman. By the way, if you're a woman who wants to be called a woman, fuck you. It doesn't make any sense. It's hypocritical as far as I can tell. Do you not think women are people? Like, this is stupid. This is a stupid fucking tweet. I don't know if the New York Post is like on Anna's side or not with this. So maybe they think this is an own. Do you not think women are people? Like suggesting she finds it dehumanizing. Well, you know, like degendering someone can feel dehumanizing for some people. Isn't it supposedly dehumanizing to refuse to go by a non-binary person's preferred pronouns? But, you know, we're fine with like allowing them to have their autonomy in that way. But when it's a cisgender woman, shall we say, that's not okay. Why are you so upset? It's very weird. Is it weird? She wants to be referred to as a woman. It's not weird when I'm like that, even though I'm not really like that anymore. I don't give a fuck anymore, quite frankly. But it's weird when a woman wants it. She's literally a woman. I'm not even a fucking woman. You know what I mean? What a stupid tweet. Like this person, like, I don't know if you were just made up or something for the purposes of this fucking video, but on the off chance that you were, this was a stupid tweet and I hope you have rethought it. But hey. You're not pregnant or giving birth. Well, how do you know that she never will? So no one is calling you a birthing person. Not everything is about you, Anna. She's got a fucking opinion on it. Kelly Ellis, you're also a moron. Let's be clear. I don't know if you're a real person either. I hope not, because you're supposedly all on my side or whatever. Well, I'm not on this fucking side anymore, so fuck all this shit. Well, that was nice. The next we have is Anna Kasparian, anti-trans. First off, the phrase anti-trans to me at this point means nothing. If you want to know why, I have a video. I watched someone called Dr. Jamie or something. She's some kind of supposed trans psychiatrist who is completely unhinged and thinks complete bullshit. I don't know what else to say. It's on there. But I don't care about anti-trans anymore. Anyway, this is the Majority Report, who I haven't shown yet. I don't think. I might have. It was a while ago I did. I don't like the Majority Report. It's Sam Cedar's thing. Every time I see Sam Cedar talking, or hear him talking, should I say, it's the most soy shit. What was it he did? Fuck. There was this song that Tim Pool did with his band or whatever, and he was going around saying about how much it sounded like Nickelback. It sounded absolutely nothing like Nickelback. It wasn't the best song I've ever heard. It was very like laptop core. There's like 5 guys with like guitars and stuff, and you don't see anyone play a note until like halfway in because it's all like studio reverse stuff and like trickery and that. But like he's like saying it sounds like Nickelback. Like in what universe? Fuck me.
RIMs are broken.
Yeah, so the Majority Report. So I think they're pretty fucking awful, like pretty far left. This is someone called Emma Vigeland who, if I think Sam Cedar's a bit stupid or ideologically captured, whichever you want to go for, she is like unironically just stupid. Like I've never heard her speak and think that this is an intelligent person that I am hearing. This is just a literal mouthpiece as far as I'm concerned. And it's all the like obvious like pro-trans like arguments. She had Erin Reed, who I still need to get to when I've read more of the cast report, because she is a fucking hack fuck piece of shit, propagandist, pro-trans journalist, sitting there with Emma Vigeland talking utter shit about the cast report, all this utter bollocks. And this Erin Reed is extremely well like regarded in trans communities. She's well regarded in like leftist circles where people like Vorsh will like cite her for trans news and stuff. It's insane. He shouldn't be doing that. No one should be doing that. She's terrible. Anyway.
RIMs are broken. I don't know what's going on, but they froze.
No one is surprised that you don't know what's going on, Emma.
Basically at the start of the show, and then they aren't coming back. And I tried to refresh, then I lost all of them. But
no one's surprised by that either. Sorry, I'll stop A-logging her, I promise.
But I did see an IM that I just wanted to respond to really quickly because I didn't want, like, they actually are broken, but I felt like people might be like, you're dodging this. I'm not. So I saw that my dear friend Anna Kasparian kind of went viral with a tweet, and some people wanted me to weigh in on it. And I just, like, look, she, as I said, dear friend of mine, really good.
This will be interesting. Is it another one of those, oh, she suddenly said something I disagree with, so now I'm going to stab her in the back, like kind of like the Blaire White thing, but to a greater extent because these two are actually friends? Or is it going to be more of a, I don't know. Maybe she'll agree, who knows? Maybe I'll have to take back everything I just said about fucking Emma Vigeland. I don't know.
Good person. I don't think she's anti-trans. I don't think that's really even a question.
See how the nuance comes out because it's a friend. I don't tend to see this from her when it's someone she doesn't know.
She has a long track record in this space, and I think her track record should speak for itself. She's been in this space for a long period of time and has done.
Because I agree with that. Like, she said one thing that you disagree with. Maybe you should look at her whole track record and not just that one thing that you're sawing out about currently. Like, I agree with this.
A ton of great work. However, like I really do disagree with the emphasis. Like I think.
Oh, thank fuck, we're gonna get into some disagreement. I was really scared that I was gonna agree with everything she said then. Fuck me. Listen, even if I did, she's not off the hook. Like that Erin Reed segment, should I say, that Erin Reed segment about the cast review, that was like unforgivable. That was disgusting.
I think it's wrong to overinflate the usage of kind of awkward language like birthing person, both in frequency and in terms of the stakes involved when someone is referred to by that language, because it's awkward. I get it. It's stilted when being used in non-medical or technical terms, but I think that's like kind of the.
So she doesn't mention anything about feeling misgendered or degendered or whatever, and how that's dehumanizing to some people. Because you're not a human, you're specifically a woman, you know, for example. Not everyone has that much like pride in that identity or whatever, if that's what we're calling it. But like, that doesn't mean you get to tell other people they shouldn't feel that way, you know?
The extent of the critique, right? It's awkward. It doesn't take away anyone's rights.
It's awkward, it's something that nobody wants, it's something that's including people by excluding a much bigger group of people. Is completely unnecessary, because who the fuck is honestly offended by the fact that the vast majority of pregnant people are in fact women, and the ones that aren't women are like trans men, so they're still female, you know?
And it's not when being used right now in that context, it's not taking away anyone's rights. And like
who cares? Who cares if it's taking anyone's rights away or not? Like, if people don't want it and they have an opinion, they're going to share that opinion.
Cis woman myself, I just think it's more important to put into context that, like, while you might not.
I can hear the cogs, like, turning in her brain. Jesus fuck.
Important to put into context that, like, while you might not enjoy the technical language, that awkwardness is inevitable in this current climate and necessary because we're trying to like fortify walls right now.
It's necessary because we're trying to fortify walls. She said she wasn't dodging it, but that's a nonsense statement. I don't even know what that means.
As trans erasure is widespread right now. Like,
Trans erasure is the answer to erase women through language? Like, I don't know about that, Chief. I don't know.
there's a barrage of deliberately trans exclusionary language, which is what some of the awkward...
Oh, so it's like, well, this thing is bad, but what about all these other things that are bad for someone else? Okay, so can both things be bad? I don't even know what language she's talking about. I might even disagree with her on that, you know?
Stilted terminology is meaning to beat back. And that trans exclusionary language, stilted terminology, is meaning to beat back. Language, which is what some of the awkward, stilted terminology is meaning to beat back.
So this is beating back trans erasure. Okay. I don't know. The thing about trans erasure is whether someone accepts that trans people exist or not, I'm still here. I'm not literally clicking out of existence if someone's like, well, you don't exist. You're not what you say you are. I don't disappear. I don't cease to exist. I don't suddenly not have a brain or whatever shit. So I think trans erasure is somewhat overstated personally, especially considering what a small amount of the population we are. I mean, and then you start getting into the non-binary stuff, and it's who fucking even knows how many non-binary people there are, because it literally is just something you call yourself. So,
and that trans exclusionary language is really just the tip of the iceberg for systemic erasure. So
it's a huge conspiracy. Okay, right.
So being diligent about combating that, I mean, that's at the forefront of my mind. So
is saying pregnant people or like birthing person, is that combating trans erasure and greater erasure overall? Like, what? What's she fucking talking about?
Like, again, I've tried to say this before. From my point of view, so much of what we do in this business, very small business, and I will reiterate that, like, Anna, in my opinion, is one of the very few good ones. But we have a disagreement here. Like, it's just so much of what we do isn't just how we cover something, it's what we cover, it's story selection, it's what we emphasize, and anyone in private has the right to have preferences about how they want to be identified.
Anyone in private has the right to have preferences. Hang on, really, she hasn't even finished the sentence and I'm already wanting to kill myself. Sorry, that's a joke. That is a joke, by the way. Don't take me seriously on that.
To have preferences about how they want to be identified. But in my position...
In private, you're allowed to have preferences over what you want to be identified as.
Member of the media, member of the left, the progressive left, being kind of spokespeople for the progressive left in an online media space. I just think we have a greater responsibility. And...
To what? Say birthing persons, otherwise you're erasing trans people? That's stupid. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. Like, if she doesn't like it, she can speak out about it. That's just how it works. And at least she's acknowledging that, you know, this is a person expressing their opinion and isn't, in fact, Hitler reborn, you know?
The assertion that someone wants to just be called a woman in like an individualized, atomized context is completely fair. But within the context of larger anti-trans panic and hundreds of bills on the state level.
Anti-trans panic. We need to make sure people can say birthing person without like judgment from others that don't like the term and don't want to be called it, so that we can combat anti-trans panic. What are you talking about?
Level targeting trans people. Like, I try to bring a certain amount of awareness about how my statements
There is so much of a weird feeling I get when I listen to like these, let's say, cisgender people talking about like my shit as if they have any clue beyond talking to idiots like Erin in the morning and stuff. Like, it's so bizarre. I don't care about this shit, like, at all. I don't care that pregnant women exist and there's going to be the odd trans man that isn't included because someone said pregnant women. I don't give a fuck. Like, you know why it's referred to as women. Because women are adult females. Adult female humans, should I say. And you're a female and an adult and a human. Like, it's just obvious. You're getting called something you don't like, but, you know, just fucking live with it. We're supposed to be adults. None of us apparently are anymore, but we're supposed to be adults, so why not just fucking live with it? Why not just accept that you're going against the grain and that sometimes that means that language is not going to go in your favor.
Are going to be taken, and I think it's obtuse to skirt around the context, right?
That's not obtuse. This is obtuse. You're invoking all kinds of other stuff. You talked about greater erasure, which you have not explained whatsoever.
So that's my take on that. But I just wanted to address that because even though the IMs are broken, I did see the IM, and I didn't want, people to.
Are women really going to listen to this and be like, oh shit, yeah, maybe I should be okay with being called a birthing person and a chest feeder and all that other shit that no one wants. No one wants this fucking gender-free language and stuff. So why even stick up for it? Why even stick up for it when it's unwanted? It's clunky, like she literally even admitted. It actually does kind of erase other people, but we're acting like it's okay when it's done a certain direction because we're combating anti-trans erasure. Fucking, I wish we were less visible, because I think a lot of problems might calm down a bit if we stop chasing visibility at any cost for like a second and think about what's actually important to us, like healthcare and shit like that, like helping trans people out of poverty, like making sure more trans people have somewhere to fucking live. But instead we go after like people who say they don't want to be called a birthing person. Like, this is insane. Like, what's the point in any of this? This is like the most white people problems shit ever. Can you imagine explaining this shit to like someone in like a village in Africa where if they don't go hunting, they could starve to death in a few days. If they don't hunt their food and bring it back, a great effort. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is like insane to me.
Be upset to think I was dodging anything.
Yeah, it would have. People would have.
You did fucking well. Did she dodge it? Let's think about that for a second. I mean, she kind of diverted to other stuff. That it's about trans erasure, which she didn't really demonstrate. Like, there wasn't any examples. Greater erasure, which, you know, we gotta lump it in with a bunch of other stuff for no reason, and don't justify that. I don't know. I thought this was pretty fucking terrible, to be honest.
Think I was dodging anything.
Yeah, it would have. People would have immediately said that. I mean, yeah, just like some of the context. Human Rights Campaign warns yesterday that 50% of transgender youth.
Since when have fucking leftists cared about being accused of dodging things? That's all half of them fucking do.
America could lose access to gender-affirming primary care thanks to new laws from state legislatures across the country. And the truth is that non-binary and trans people get pregnant. And like, how do you address that in language? Like, that's actually a language.
If it's a specific person, then I don't know, maybe be like, oh, it's a pregnant person then, instead of applying it to everyone. Or maybe, I don't know, calling them like a pregnant trans man. I don't fucking know. Who cares? Who cares? Like, how many trans men are pregnant at any given time? I'd be surprised that it was like double figures most of the time. So like, what are we doing? No one wants this. Like, wake up. Listen to fucking Anna. Listen to what the people that actually have their finger on the pulse a little more and actually understand people are saying. Because this is like the cult brain leftist bullshit in action. This is like an enormous inflation, ironically, of like a non-issue on her end. You could argue that it doesn't really matter in the converse, that you're being called a pregnant person instead of a pregnant woman. But like I said, to them, that's erasing their shit, you know? Why is it okay to do it for us? Because what? Trans people are more oppressed, I guess. I don't know. I can't sit and say that I'm oppressed with a straight face because I'm white and I'm British in my white British accent. I understand what most people on the internet are saying because the internet speaks English for the most part. I don't know. I think I'm pretty privileged in a lot of ways, quite honestly.
Problem.
Yeah.
And like, to me, like, I think like, okay, like clinical language might be like sort of awkward, but it's also
Clinical language. It's not even clinical language.
awkward to be a trans and non-binary person in this sort of context to try to go through a pregnancy. And that's
Who the fuck is talking? They should show their face. If you're going to spout this utter bullshit, I think I'm just going to finish here, to be honest. If you're going to spout this utter bullshit, show your face, okay? Like, this is... I mean, I'm getting angry. I need to stop. All right, I've got one more thing on this tangent I've been going on. So this is walk away, trans activist leaves the left. To be clear, like, as far as I can tell, this hashtag walk away thing, this is like a rightoid thing. This is like I used to be a card-carrying Dem and now I'm a card-carrying Republican, which to me is like just leaving a cult to join another cult. But I'm not necessarily saying this about this particular person because I don't know her story yet. So her name is Suhaila. Apologies if saying that wrong. Suhaila. I'm a 28-year-old Krishna devotee and transsexual woman. Was a full-time dedicated activist in the LGBT community for many years. After working with and for the left at many leftist organizations and nonprofits for several years, I'm finally choosing to walk away from the insanity. I hope you find this video informative and insightful. So she's got a lot more experience than I do with like activism and the left, because for me it was more like I'd try and find community and it was just impossible for me, like repeatedly for years and years and years. And then being gaslit on it when I tried to speak to any of my trans friends about it. So, you know, she probably knows more about this like activism shit than I do. I'm just learning and watching, so.
Hello, hi, namaste, and welcome to my walkaway story. Thanks for joining the video. My name is Suhaila. I'm 28
Suhaila, I said her name wrong.
years old. Presently, I am a student and researcher of Hindu and Vedic culture, and I'm studying to be a Hindu priest. For about the last 9 years, I've worked in the field of...
Was Krishna like a Hindu thing? I didn't actually know that. I know a little bit about Hinduism, but like where I come from is very like, there's a lot of Indian people there. And most of them were Sikhs, I think. So I didn't learn as much about Hinduism, but hey.
Activism and social work and charity work. This last year, I've worked as a community health worker here in the state of Oregon. And prior, I worked for about 7-8 years in San Diego.
Oh, she's in Oregon. She's met some right fucking crazies in that case. Is she in Portland?
Working with LGBT homeless youth and working on issues like gay marriage and banning conversion therapy for minors in the state. Where do I go from there? I'm pretty nervous. So I'm a transsexual person, obviously, trans activist in the name of the video. If you don't know what that means, when I was born a boy and I was raised a boy. But from my earliest memories, from when I was probably like 3 or 4, it was just a very self-evident thing for me that I just knew I was a girl, or knew I was a woman. And when I was a teenager, I transitioned so I could live like a woman, or live as a woman, or just live as myself, which I've been doing for many years now. Very happily transitioned, no regrets, and engaged to my very lovely, handsome fiance. So life is good. But anyways, it wasn't always like that. And life used to be really hard. When I lived in San Diego, on and off for about 6 years, I was a homeless youth, and I was also a survival sex worker. So for a number of years, it was very, very difficult for me to even just put down roots and take care of myself. But even in the midst of all those years, I was very dedicated to my trans activism and LGBT activism. And I dedicated, a lot of my energy and many years of my life to the LGBT community. And it's very unfortunate that, coming out now saying that I'm leaving the left, that all of the recognition that I have received from any of the agencies or institutions, I would probably be very much severely dragged through the mud, for having...
This person has a lot more to lose than someone like me, to be clear. Like, I was always on the outside. It's just that I stopped trying to become on the inside, if that makes sense. Whereas this person was very much on the inside.
Left to the left. And, when people say, they hear about trans activism, they hear trans activist and it's almost like a dirty word, because they think it's some like super radical, leftist, crazy, angry person. And all they usually are angry people on Twitter or Tumblr or angry people online. They don't actually do much. So most people have a bad idea of, or distasteful idea of what it is to be a trans activist. And I don't blame them. I've encountered so many trans activists myself that have been pretty insufferable people. So I know, I'm sorry. And that's why...
It'd be like that. Fucking hell. Like most of the people I've met locally that are activist types, they're either like fake trans that literally have transitioned nowhere, or they're trans but they're also terrible people. I don't know. When you've been stabbed in the back a few times, you kind of get used to just being wary of all of those kinds of people, and it sucks, but it's just what happens.
I'm here making this walkaway video because things have gotten so absurd and so insane in the left, but especially in my community of the LGBT community, that I'm not welcome anymore and I just have to leave. And you know, I've done so much work over the years. I've been, and I just want to tell you this to give weight to my experience, that you know, nobody can say that I didn't do my part, that I wasn't dedicated, that I'm not like some sellout to the right, because I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent. I don't even like politics.
Okay, so I said earlier about hashtag walkaway being like I used to be a damn now I'm a repub thing. She doesn't seem to be doing that, and that's quite relatable to me. Like, I was probably further left when I was more into the SJW stuff, and when I kind of wanted to be on the inside a little more. And I've like drifted a little towards the center. I definitely haven't like become a fucking Tory overnight, and I don't think I ever would personally.
Politics, but it's just important to me that I just do important work. It's very important for me personally to be engaged in, you know, social work or doing work that is uplifting or helping people. But anyways, again, just to add weight to my experience and my work and my voice, on 2 separate occasions, I was awarded and recognized or given 2 certificates of recognition by Senator Toni Atkins. Toni Atkins, I believe, was the first openly lesbian senator to the U.S. I've met her a couple times in San Diego, lovely lady, and 2 awards from her. I was also awarded on 2 separate times, 2 separate awards from the California State Assembly from Todd Gloria. He's openly gay man running, I believe he's running for San Diego mayor now. So 2 awards from him, and an award from the San Diego Unified School Board. I did a lot of work with a lot of the schools around San Diego County. I was awarded the Anne Frank Humanitarian Award by the Florida Holocaust Museum. And let's see, I have a couple more awards here from city council members of San Diego. So, oh, here's one more. This is important too. PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. I believe it's the oldest LGBT organization in existence. It was one of the first LGBT organizations to pop up. I believe the founder, I think she passed away a couple of years ago, but it started out as, just like it says, parents and friends who would get together to help them process having a gay child or a lesbian child or transgender child. So it's kind of like a support group for the whole family and everyone involved. So I was actually a featured speaker at PFLAG's Launching Leadership Awards ceremony. I was given a big scholarship and award there. So again, I don't say these things to be prideful, but in the hopes that if all of these big important people have given me all these big shiny pieces of paper, maybe people will listen to me. But you know, things are not what they used to be a number of years ago. Even a year ago, things are...
My guess is, even if you're someone that's like earned their stripes, as this person very much seems to have and has done a lot of good work, that still doesn't mean that people are gonna... You know, it's like what, of all people, Emma said just now from the Majority Report. Like, we should be able to look at someone's track record just because they're now saying some stuff that we don't agree with as much. And, you know, there should be a certain amount of respect there, but there's almost no respect between, like, trans leftists, I find, or trans anything. Like, we all just hate each other. By the way, just to point out, this is from December 2020, so this is a few years old, this video.
Things have gotten significantly more radical. A number of years ago, it was still acceptable to have the view that a person is a person. First and foremost, they are an individual, and you judge or interact with that person based on the content of their character, right? What Martin Luther King used to say all the time, we have to judge people by the content of their character, not the color of the skin, not their privileged status, not their oppressed status, not their sexual orientation, or their gender identity, or their income. We look at people as individuals, and we look at the content of their character.
True, based.
Unfortunately, now, these days, the left has, almost across the board, accepted a very fringe, radical ideology. You've probably heard of it as, critical race consciousness or critical theory. And they have chosen this to be their driving ideology for their movement. Now, critical consciousness or critical theory is a very dangerous fringe ideology that has its roots back in cultural Marxism back in the day. There's a lot of, lectures and videos, and you can look on YouTube about this. You can go on Google. There's a lot of different resources. But to sum it up, critical consciousness is a way to train yourself to see the world. And it claims that it's a liberatory a system. So any form of oppression that someone is going through, if you apply the critical consciousness lens, you can liberate yourself or liberate others. So critical consciousness or critical theory can be broken up into what I would say 3 main denominations or 3 main groups. It's very much like a religion. So just like we can say, for example, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam would all fall under the umbrella of Abrahamism. Critical consciousness has its denominations and main groups as well. So the 3 main groups of critical consciousness are critical race consciousness, critical sex or gender consciousness, and critical class consciousness. Now, these days, everybody's going crazy over the critical race consciousness. That is the strongest denomination, the loudest voice of all the critical consciousness or critical theory. Secondly, would probably be the critical sex consciousness or critical gender consciousness, which is where we get a lot of this new, very radical LGBT philosophies. LGBT just used to be about some people are gay, some people are lesbian, some people are trans. We're born that way, just let us live our lives in peace. These days, it's not about that. It's this radical theory of gender as a social construct, and there's all these neo-genders and neo-pronouns, and sexuality and gender orientation is malleable, and that it's influenced by your environment. Therefore, people just need to unlearn or deconstruct their heteronormative preferences, which is conversion therapy. We see people on the left now, and a lot of non-binary activists and neo-gender activists that are claiming that people need to, or they can change their sexual orientation, and they should. I have seen my gay and lesbian brothers and sisters harassed by these radical trans and non-binary activists. There's bi erasure because they want to get rid of bisexual, because bisexual means 2, and if you're acknowledging there's 2 genders instead of 500 million, then you're being transphobic. So the LGBT community is a mess. Let me just tell you, it is a dump.
It's pretty delusional when you think about it. Like, so many of these people just want to, like, erase sex, which you can't do, like, because that's just a part of who you are, whether you like it or not. Like, I'm never gonna completely get away from being born male. Like, that is still part of who I am, whether I like it or not. So, to me, it just makes no sense to feed into that delusion. It makes sense to acknowledge what you are, and like you can reject that because you don't like it. You can reject your male sex because you don't like it and you want to be a woman, but that doesn't make you a woman. You can't just identify out of anything that you don't like, because that still is who you are. Like, as it stands, the way you were born, most likely your role would be impregnating a woman in terms of like your sex role, in terms of continuing on the human race, which obviously is not such a vital thing anymore, but it is what it is. I mean, we're mammals, right? So I don't know. To me, it's like rejecting like delusion is how I'm thinking of it.
Dumpster fire right now. I don't think you really need to hear that from me. You probably know yourself. And then the third main group of the critical consciousness is the critical class consciousness. We don't hear much about that these days. That's like last century, communism and the proletariat and the bourgeoisie and the capitalism and the revolution. And these days you get, the Bernie Sanders people,
No one wants that shit, by the way. We don't have to tie our flag so tightly to socialism or communism or anarchism, but we insist on doing so, despite the fact that the vast majority of people don't want these things. And if that's part of what you're advocating for, then necessarily you're going to fail. So, hey, I don't know.
Talking about the millionaires and the billionaires and all of that. But for the most part, right now, the left has adopted and promoted critical class and gender and sex consciousness. Now, I'm firmly against this because we are people, we are individuals, we are not our labels. And just because I happen to be a transsexual woman, just because I happen to be a Hindu person, just because I happen to be a formerly homeless person, like, that doesn't define me. Like, those are just descriptors. Like, the I, the self, like, I am beyond those things. So I need you to see beyond those things instead of just seeing me as some poor, oppressed, victimized little trans person, because that's not what I am.
I feel that. I don't know. I've experienced like abuse and stuff in my life. not good. It's messed me up a whole bunch, but like I'm not defined by that. And yeah, I would like people to see past that kind of thing. Like, I don't think the worst things about yourself and the horrible things that we all have to go through, because people have like horrible experiences. That's just part of being human. Like, I don't know. You gotta be able to not wallow in your oppression and try and find the path out, which you have to do for yourself. Ultimately, no one's gonna do it for you. You know, getting your tits cut off or wearing makeup when you're a boy, like, you know, that by itself is not going to do anything.
So my main issue with this critical consciousness, when it's dividing up people into different groups and different, mapping people out on a scale of oppressed and privileged.
So we get a lot of this, like, what's it called? I complain about it constantly. Intersectionality. My current thought regarding that kind of thing is that people with no empathy tend to use it as a replacement for empathy. So instead of like trying to understand the person before them who's talking, who might be me, who's a white middle class person from a first world country that lives in the same country they're from, you know, I'm not like really very oppressed, like I'm privileged or whatever. And so they'd be tempted to disregard me on that basis. Whereas if I was like black or had one leg or some other, whatever else you want to say, they'd be more likely to hear me out, and they'll treat me like I have no like voice because I'm too privileged, even though calling me privileged, if you actually knew me, is a bit crazy. But yeah, I don't know. That's my theory. I think a lot of people see intersectionality as a way of replacing empathy, and that's a really fucked mindset if that's true.
When you do that, you are sacrificing mutual respect, because to be able to mutually respect someone and have an honest...
Yeah, it's like some people have more of a right to be human in your eyes than others. That's almost what it feels like. And that you're trying to compensate for something. But let's say they're talking to me and they're saying that, you know, I'm not shit because I'm privileged. Like, aren't you just doing the opposite? Aren't you trying to redress something that I had nothing to do with? Like, I don't know what racism I'm fucking continuing on the lineage of, you know, I'm listening to a Hindu woman, you know. What do you want me to do exactly? Like, I don't know. I'm beyond like sick of the whole intersectional thing. The other thing about it is I see it used in two ways, which is that one of them is a silencing tool, aka you're oppressed, you're not oppressed, you're privileged, you're white, you're British, you live in Britain, you're not oppressed, you're privileged. So shut the fuck up, basically. The other way is to like dodge arguments. So like, God, I had one argument with one particularly egregious piece of shit that I used to know personally and like met once or something, who wouldn't say any of this shit to my face, by the way. It had to be over Facebook or some shit. Like, what were they saying? It was like, we were talking about like the trans sports thing at one point, and they just start going off into like racism and why like, you know, certain standards for hormones and stuff in women's sports is like racist as well because of all this shit. It's like, I'm not fucking talking about race. I'm talking about trans people. Like, what you're doing is throwing a different subject in there and very conveniently not dealing with the subject that we were talking about, which is really convenient because the points I made for that subject A, and now we're talking about subject B, which were two white people talking about race, which is just cringe as fuck in and of itself. You know? Yeah, it drives me insane. There's a huge amount of problems. Like, there are certain things that I think intersectional analysis probably is like useful for, but the way it is used like far outweighs any actual like use it seems to have. I think we should just throw it on the fire, like get rid of it. People don't understand it. People don't know how to use it appropriately. People will use it extremely inappropriately all the time. So like, just get rid of it. Fuck it.
This conversation or relationship with someone, you have to come on level playing ground and see each other as equals. If you're placing people as privileged and you're placing people as oppressed, at most, maybe you can get some superficial tolerance, but you'll never have equality and mutual respect. So for all of the people that are being labeled or identify as, you know, privileged, like a lot of these very guilty white people or guilty rich people or guilty like straight people, they have all of this shame in this guilt, and they feel bad for being privileged. And they're up here and they think all the other people are down here. So this privileged person is not going to be able to have the correct perspective on someone from here, because when you're looking down, you're only going to be able to.
And by the way, how often is someone calling someone privileged because they don't know enough about them? Like, I have like invisible like disabilities and stuff. People don't know this about me unless I tell them. So like, someone will call me privileged not understanding this. But like, generally when I point it out and suggest that, you know, you don't know me very well and you're saying something ridiculous because you don't understand who I am as a person, like, they'll still double down on it. Like, they won't listen. Like, the worst thing, like, something I've learned very quickly is if you're like autistic or something, don't mention it in a conversation, because the other person will just be like, oh, well, I'm autistic too. And then go on to act in a way that most autistic people find completely insufferable. You know, using all the vague, meaningless language. Like, autistic people don't like ambiguity usually. So the way these people talk, it's like completely insufferable, but then they claim that same thing that you're saying you have. So like, it's a completely useless like strategy. Don't talk about any specific shit you have. Just, you know, this person is making a judgment on you based on not knowing you well enough. It's ignorant, you know?
To patronize and tokenize, and at the worst, fetishize.
Yeah, looking down on people.
And then if you're down here and you identify as an oppressed person or a victim, everyone up here, you're just going to become embittered and resentful of everyone up here. So that's why I think what the left used to.
I know so many people who are extremely embittered, usually because they're trans, and now that means that they're at the very bottom of the totem pole. And it's just not a good way to be. It's not good for your mental health, and it's not good for your relations with other people. It's not good for your ability to understand and relate to other people. Again, yeah, it's just something that as many people as possible need to get the fuck out of, like, urgently.
Preach about equality and judging people as an individual and judging them by the content of their character. It levels the playing field instead of mapping people out and weighing all of their oppression points, race suppression.
Yeah, I'm amazed that there's another way to be. Like, I treat people the way they treat me. If someone's a piece of shit to me, then I'll probably end up being a piece of shit back to them if they don't stop. If someone's chill with me and just wants to have a conversation, then we're going to be fine. Because, you know, that's all I really care about. I care how you treat me. I care about the things people say, but ultimately, you know, I don't want to fight over the things people say. Like, if there's a disagreement, we'll have that disagreement, you know. But even that is like almost impossible in trans circles. Like, there is no disagreeing. Like, you think like the rest of them do, or you're necessarily Hitler. So, great.
Points, or income oppression points, or gender oppression points. Like, it's just ridiculous. So this is a very divisive ideology. Right now, we don't need more division. We need unity. And that's why I wholeheartedly...
Someone I used to be friends with, like, called me privileged over talking about, like, the Harry Potter boycott shit and not being on board with it and thinking the whole thing was stupid. Which I didn't say in as many words. Like, I was pretty irritated about the whole thing, but, like, they called me, like, privileged. This is a person that is just as white and British as I am, has a bigger car than me, has a nicer house than me, has nowhere near as many mental health issues, even though they're way more open about them, because whining on the internet is how you do that, I guess. Like, that's the true oppression. It's not about whether you have stuff wrong with you in your brain. It's not about having mental health issues. It's about how much you whine about them on the internet. That's what I tend to find. So yeah, people will have no qualms about calling someone less privileged than they are privileged. Even when they point it out, it's like they refuse to see what you're seeing, even though what you're seeing is the literal truth. Oh my God, what have I done? Okay.
And fully reject this critical consciousness, which has infected every element of the left. It's very unfortunate, but things have gotten to the point now where people are getting doxxed. They are getting assaulted. Here in Oregon, where I live, there have been people drug out of their homes. There have been people shot in the street of Portland for supporting President Trump. There have been LGBT people that don't...
God, wasn't there that guy? Fuck. There was a guy that, like, murdered someone. I can't remember what his name was. I think the guy that got murdered was, like, Aaron something. I can't remember. And then he, like, went home, Like President Trump was like personally wanting him taken out or some shit, like did a speech or something. This guy like went home, like did an interview or something, and then like the police came knocking and eventually shot him dead. Like crazy shit, like insane. Only in Portland, I guess, Oregon, whichever. I don't know if, did she say she was in Portland? I can't remember. I'll see the video later.
Agree with the leftist narrative that have been threatened and assaulted. So this leftist ideology does not bring people together. It's not.
Bro, I get harassed and like threatened and shit. You know, it happens to other people as much as it happens to trans people. It's a part of being in these conversations. It's a part of being in this kind of toxic arena, which I'm 100% like aware of. I'm 100% understanding of what I'm doing, and that's a consequence. I watched a Jessie Gender video yesterday. At one point, she started like getting upset and crying about how shit her life is compared to people that were like harassed for playing the fucking Harry Potter game. And it was like all she did was show some like mean comments she got, and like the kind of shit that every one of us gets. Like she gets more than I do because more people know who she is. But like, is that all you got? You're like crying in your car doing this vlog as if you shouldn't just fucking turn the camera off and calm down. Because obviously you've got to get that on the camera because it's manipulation, right? And it's just embarrassing. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Not fixing anything. It's not helping anyone. And please understand, especially here on the West Coast, it's been pretty horrifying to see. But there are many radical leftists that, will claim to be BLM and pro Black people and people of color. But the moment that they come up against a Black person that disagrees with them, they will call that person an Uncle Tom. Or if they come up against...
or if they're trans, they'll call you a quisling, pick-me, traitor. Oh, they won't spare you. They won't spare you when the people come for you in my autistic fucking imagination. There's not gonna happen. Like, fuck off. Just fuck off. You're all idiot. Any one of you that says that shit, you're stupid as fuck, quite frankly.
A gay person that disagrees, they're just, it's internalized homophobia and you're a self-hating gay person.
Interestingly, that term has kind of gone the other way now, because it's like internalized homophobia is a reason why someone might transition because they're gay and they don't want to be gay. So they'll be, I don't know, a straight woman, a straight trans woman, should I say, instead of a gay man, stuff like that.
Or if you're a transgender person like me and you disagree with them, then it's internalized transphobia and you...
Oh yeah, it's another classic. I guess where I'm several years in the future of this is like, what I get is quisling and pick me and traitor and stuff. It is pathetic. If that's the best they got, then hey, this is gonna be fucking easy as shit. That's all I'm saying.
You just hate yourself. That's the only reason you disagree. And people are getting violent here. It's quite scary. People are losing their minds. There is increasingly less and less and less room for nuance and increasingly less amounts of patience and compassion that people have for themselves or for others. Anyways, to finish off my last thoughts, I'd just like to say, as someone who's spent years on the left, who's very familiar with the left, who has lived and worked with people in the radical left, I'm telling you that this is a dangerous philosophy. This is not something that you want to take on for yourself, and it's not going to help anybody in the long run. It's a divisive, dualistic system that will never bring unity for anyone. So we need to get our act together and be able to come together as Americans to have nuanced conversations so things don't continue to escalate into a civil war. Because from my perspective here as an Oregonian, it seems very, very likely that a civil war could or will break out regardless of...
Well, fast forward to 2024 and the UK is on fire, so I don't know, maybe it's coming at some point soon, who knows?
Regardless of how the presidential election goes. So anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you very much. I hope that my story and maybe some of my experiences were helpful to you, or maybe they could be helpful to someone else that's on the fence about leaving the left. But it just goes to show that you could be a transgender person, you can be a biracial person, you could be so many different things. That doesn't mean that the left is entitled to your vote, or that you have to stay tied to the Democrats or stay to the American left. So with that, again, thank you. Please stay safe. Please take care of yourself and your loved ones, and stay the heck away from critical consciousness. Okay? Bye-bye. Hare Krishna.
That was Suhaila Devi, her name is. That was really good. I need to look more into like critical consciousness. Please don't. You know what, you can have my disgusting makeupless face for a bit. Hello, I look like shit. How you doing? No, yeah, I thought that was a really good video. Like, unfortunately, stuff has only gotten worse. It's not just like fucking Oregon where this shit is a problem. And it's only going to continue to be a problem. And what's going to continue to happen is more and more and more and more gay people, trans people, other kinds of people are going to leave the left because we're all getting sick of this shit. It's just how it is. A lot of us are feeling like this like trans activism is not doing shit for us. Like, I don't know who it's for because all it's doing is making things worse seemingly. Like, we did the Harry Potter boycott and it got more sales. Fuck me, like the trans puberty blockers went down with almost no resistance. Not that I want that shit anyway, I'm not for transing kids myself. The wait times continue to get longer and longer and longer. What the fuck are the activists, advocates doing about that? Fuck all, it seems. We're all pushing ridiculous politics like socialism and communism and shit that no one wants. Not in the real world anyway. I'm sure on the internet and people watching this are like, well, everyone I know is a leftist. It's like, no one cares about your fucking internet ideology. Just get used to that. That's all there is to it. Like, I need to look more into critical consciousness. You know what? Okay, I'll do one more thing. That was my thoughts on, my extended thoughts on leaving the left as an LGBT person, which I wouldn't say I've left the left, but I more or less have. Because I don't want any part in the kind of bullshit that's going on. I don't want any part in these activist circles that are just full of psychopaths who are the most fucking unhinged and toxic people in the world, and yet think that somehow what they're doing is moral. It's not moral. Like, you're just being a piece of shit, honestly. Like, ridiculous. Fuck this shit.